everybody, Whitney Wonka here, and once again we are back in the Willy Wonka Master Bedroom. And with only one child left, it's easy to guess that today we're going to be talking about the all-heart but slightly boring Charlei Bucket. Now, even though this is the last child, this will not be the last Willy Wonka video. There is at least one more video coming, and I know you're probably saying, Whitney, why are you drawing this out? Well, the truth of it is I went so fast on all the other rooms for this dollhouse that I really felt like I wasn't being able to enjoy the process as much and savor the process as much. So I really wanted to slow myself down this time and really enjoy it, and I hope that you're enjoying it too. Now with that said, even though Charlei is a little bit on the boring side, we can leave it to Grandpa Joe to, spice it up. Or in this case, fizz it up. So we will be talking about Grandpa Joe also in this episode. And speaking of fizzy, I have a little bit of a fizzy lifting drink here myself. Not bad. I gave some to Tiny Whitney about an hour ago, actually, come to think of it. I haven't seen her. I hope she's doing okay. Well, no matter. I'm sure she's fine wherever she's at. Anyway, we have a lot to get to, so let's get started. Let's quickly review the room since it's been a few weeks. You can see that almost all the pieces are in place and all the kids are represented in each piece of furniture, except this back wall here, and that's where the Charlei Bucket dresser and mirror will go. Now, the room that's associated with Charlei is the fizzy lifting drink room, and this room does appear in both the original and the newer versions of the movie. However, in the book, Charlei never experiences the fizzy drink and the floating. In fact, the room is only briefly mentioned, which is kind of cool. But in this room, in my little master bedroom, it will be the backdrop to the Charlei Bucket dresser. I want to create that black backdrop with the silver cage and the bubbles. And so I'm going to start by painting several wooden coffee stirrers in a silver acrylic paint. And then once they dry, I'll add my tester silver paint on top to give them this really nice metallic finish and shine. I'm going to use a couple of my basic black scrapbook paper as my backdrop. And then I want to place those coffee stirrers in a pattern that best represents that cage-like thing that we see behind Charlei as they float up. Now this took me a few tries to get the right angles on those sticks. I really did love this room in the film growing up, and even today, of course, I love it. Interestingly enough, this is also the only time that we see Charlei break the rules. I find it kind of fascinating that he would have probably never taken a sip of that fizzy lifting drink if it hadn't been for the influence of Grandpa Joe. And I loved this about Grandpa Joe. He's a little edgy even for his age, and this comes from his concern about Charlei and him losing his childhood and having to work for, and being so young. I found this really cool photo too of Charlei and Grandpa Joe being held up by these leather harnesses for the floating scene. Sorry to spoil it for all of those who thought that the drink was truly magical. Now I wanted to add some bubbles, so I found these clear bubble stickers in a variety of sizes, and I'm just going to stick them all over the background in places where I think they should be. I am going to leave a couple openings though, because I do want to add a mirror to the dresser, so I'm going to put that on there, so I'm not going to put any bubbles there. Now, of course, it's time to make the dresser. Now, I already had this dresser, and it's missing a leg already, and it doesn't have any artist signature on it, so that makes me feel a little bit better about what I'm about to do to it. Now, of course, in the movies and also the book, it does describe Charlei's house as basically a shack, and it's always right outside of the big city. It's a really drafty house, and it's freezing in the winter. There's only 2 rooms, and it only has 1 bed, of course, where the grandparents sleep. So first, I'm going to attempt to make this dresser look a bit more shabby, of course. However, I do want to add a little color and paint to represent the outfit that Charlei wears in the factory. He's basically just wearing a dark blue kind of navy colored turtleneck and some dark charcoal like corduroy type pants. That's the best I can tell. I think they're like a corduroy pant. Anyway, I told you he was a bit boring, so I'm going to go ahead and add those colors to the dresser first. Now let's talk about our dear Charlei Bucket. He was played by Peter Ostrom, and Peter had been a part of a very well-known children's branch of the Cleveland Playhouse, which had some really great actor alumni like Paul Newman. He'd already been acting for about 3 years when they found him for this part, and he had no ambition to continue acting into his adult life, and so this was the only movie that he ever did. I did love the character of Charlei. I mean, it's really hard not to. He's so sweet and kind, but if I have to really be honest, and please don't be mad at me about this, but I actually liked the Charlei better in the Tim Burton version. I know, gasp, right? Clutch your pearls, but this is the thing. The Tim Burton version of Charlei, just when you read the book, I think he just represented how Charlei looked so much better in his innocence. He was just so much physically truer to the book version, and to me a little bit more interesting. But he was also more frail, he was softer, and in every scene that he's in, you just want to hug him and feed him a sandwich. And I don't know, but maybe that's just me. You let me know what you think in the comments. So I have popped off one of the front of the drawers, and I cut down a few popsicle sticks, and I want to stick them to the front to kind of make that dresser, of course, look more like a shack. And then once they're all glued and dried, I did paint them with some light brown and a dark brown. Now the dark brown is actually called melted chocolate, which obviously seems quite fitting for this project. For the bottom drawer, I do want to do something a little bit more special. I wanted to represent that bed in the house. And that's where we should actually start talking about Grandpa Joe. So now, even as a kid, I never understood why 4 seemingly healthy but slightly older adults would just lay in bed for 20 years while the house kind of crumbled down around them and while they all slowly starved. It made no sense to me that poverty and starvation would not motivate you to be able to get out of bed and help out. However, the chance to see a famous chocolate factory would get you not only out of bed, but it would also put you into a serious dancing mood after 20 years. However, in the book, there are a few more details that kind of help me out. Number 1, all the grandparents are actually in their 90s, and it specifically states that Grandpa Joe is the oldest and he's 96. And the idea of being in bed for 20 years, well, the book doesn't actually say that's how long they were in bed. It really just says they were in bed for a long time. I felt a little bit better knowing that since I work in the senior population. And yes, being close to that 100 can certainly slow you down. And in fact, to have 4 grandparents reach their 90s is actually a miracle, especially in the conditions that they were living in and having so little food. So I guess what I'm just trying to say here is that I reached a bit more of an understanding when it comes to Grandpa Joe. So now that I have that little bed in the drawer, it's time to create, and I want to add a few additional accessories to the dresser to kind of help in telling Charlei's story through this piece of furniture. First of all, we need some chocolate. So I have these little chocolate bars, and then I've printed up a few Wonka wrappers, and I have this gold thin metal sheet here that I just want to cut out a small piece and kind of tuck into the back of the chocolate bar to represent that golden ticket that he finds. I also have this little newspaper. I'm going to add that to the top of the dresser since that's basically what Charlei was doing to help feed his family and buy Grandpa Joe some of that tobacco for his 1 pipe a day. And speaking of pipes, I want to make one little tiny pipe to place into the bed to represent Grandpa Joe, and I'm going to use some polymer clay and just make a very simple pipe. Now, have you guys ever seen those Harmony Kingdom collectibles? I have one right here. They're super cool, really detailed, and then when you go to open them, they always have like this little treasure inside. So I thought I would do something similar for the dresser here, and I thought a heart would be a perfect little representation for him and for his family.
5, 4, 3.
Now, another significant moment for Charlei is when he finds the money in the gutter. He's a little depressed since the last ticket was supposedly found. So when he finds that money, he feeds his feelings by purchasing and just gorging himself on some chocolate. This find is the catalyst that allows him to buy the chocolate bar with the actual last remaining golden ticket. So I wanted to add a little tiny coin in the front of the gesture, just kind of peeking out at us. So here's the dresser mirror that I want to use. It's actually a swivel mirror where the stand has been broken off. So I've just added a few more bubble stickers to it. And the blue tape there is just to keep the reflection of my lights out of your eyes. So you're welcome. Anyway, I'll glue it above the dresser and kind of slightly off to one side once we install everything. The last thing I want to add is the Fizzy lifting drink as an accent to the background wall. And I have this little wine bottle. Now it's a larger scale, which actually makes it perfect for this application. And I'm going to print up a Fizzy lifting drink label and glue it on. And now, of course, it's time to add all the new pieces to the room. Okay, so wow, we have a lot going on in here, but guess what? We're about to have a lot more going on because we are going to do quite a bit in the last and final video. Obviously, I have no Oompa Loompas, So I definitely want to add that. I also think I need a Willy Wonka in here for sure. And there are several other elements from the movie that I want to include before I can really call this room completed. So please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already done so that you don't miss out on that video. And like I said before in my other video, I will be working on an Alice in Wonderland backyard for my big Garfield dollhouse. And then the next room coming up in the 15-room dollhouse when we're finished with this one is going to be in the attic, the last attic room of that dollhouse. And it is going to be Goonies themed. So I'm really, really excited about that. We are going to have so much fun. So thank you so much for hanging out with me this week. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.